All right. Good morning, folks. Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy stream. Today we are going to be playing with Legacy Slivers, aka Meathooks, because, you know, they got these little talon hooky things. Um, this is not a donation deck list explicitly. I received a donation for a dealer's choice list from, I believe, Innistrad Revenue Service. Let me confirm that. Yes, from the Innistrad Revenue Service. And I'm cashing that in this morning. High Tide is at the top of the queue, but High Tide is a little mentally taxing for where I'm at right now. And I wanted to play something that was a little bit simpler and a little bit more sort of like up my alley. So High Tide will probably happen. What is today? Saturday. High Tide will probably happen on Monday night, but I wanted to just kind of relax this morning and play something that I thought would be fun. Um, so in case you haven't played Slivers before, it is a tribal deck that doesn't see a lot of play. The primary pilot of the deck is Daniel Nunes, who like very consistently puts up 5-0s with the deck list. Essentially, the deck list spirals out of control very quickly, and it is an incredibly powerful Ether Vial deck because almost all of the cards are at CMC2. So it's kind of the dream of like picking the vial up at 2 and you never have to touch it from there, and you just get to like dump in a lot of really annoying cards. Felchmaster, thank you very much for your continued support. Very much appreciated. Hope you're having at least an okay day in these difficult times. Excuse me. So most of the stuff that is here is really stock. Unsettled Mariner is maybe one you're not super familiar with. This wasn't in older iterations of the deck list. It says whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that ability unless its controller pays 1. So that also like stacks. So if you have multiple unsettled mariners, they get pretty annoying quickly. My first Stygian run today in Monster Train got my first win. Frostbite is a bit powerful. I had 6 copies of upgraded Titan's Tooth. Yeah. I love the Stygian in Monster Train. They are my favorite clan. Uh, I have some really cool videos recorded for the YouTube series for next week that I'm really excited to see people's reactions to. There's some shenanigans. All right, so I don't really have too much else to say here. Like the sideboard is relatively normal in that like the sliver deck is really good at pounding unfair decks, so most of your sideboard slots get dedicated to beating the unfair decks. Essentially in game 1, all you have for these unfair decks is Force of Will. Like that's it. You're looking to annoy the ever-loving shit out of control decks with things like Crystalline Sliver, Unsettled Mariner, and Hibernation Sliver. And you tend to beat most of the fair decks just by creating like these massive monstrous creatures that they can't beat. You get a few like small adjustments in the sideboard, but that's really it. Thoughts on Winter Orb for depths and so forth? Totally reasonable. Um, Essentially, all I did was copy the most recent Slivers 5-0 deck list that was posted this morning. I did not put any thought into this whatsoever, if I'm being totally honest with you. Oh, that's tomorrow. Am I playing in that? All right. I need to think about that. I was planning on recording daily D&D tomorrow morning. Uh, okay. I haven't logged into Moto for the last few days. Um, I spent almost all of Thursday talking and meeting with one of my new colleagues for next year. I spent Wednesday and Friday recording Monster Train videos for next week. So I have not played a lot of Magic this week. Yeah, window. Yeah. One land, three playable creatures plus a lord. Yeah. How many lands do I have? 21 lands remaining in deck. Hand is like so disgusting if I rip a land. Just get to go like one drop, Lord, dead. But yeah, really loving Monster Train. Um, I don't know, I'm up to like Covenant, like 16 or 18, somewhere in that general range. So the runs for this week are at a slightly higher difficulty level than the runs that you all watched this week. Uh, Starts to get a little more interesting as you work those Covenant levels up. Podcast episode went out yesterday in case anyone's looking for something to listen to during their work week. Ooh. Yeah, we're golden if we draw that land, I think. But we're gonna need that land, otherwise my opponent will outpower us. So here is the flanking text. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks a sliver, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Morning, Rogue Judge. Fornia, thank you very much for your continued support as well. Hope you are at least doing okay in these difficult times. I don't know how many people can, like, really and truly say, yeah, everything's great right now when the world's on fire. A lot of real rough things going on in the news right now that are just saddening. Don't do it. Find something else to do with that mana. No. Well, the good news is we have a lot of gas in hand. And the opponent has an Ancient Tomb. The bad news is I have no mana of my own. So as soon as my opponent gets a flyer or a thing with reach, I start to get into trouble. So like Stonecoil Serpent is a little weird. I still think I'm in great shape if I hit a couple of lands. Those aren't lands. So now we're probably going to end up on the wrong side of the clock here. And it will tap their Mishra's Factory to animate itself, put counters on both of those, and then, like, at a surface level, I'm on a 4-turn clock when my opponent is much healthier than that. No, 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 no! Joke's on you, fool. I still get 2 damage this turn if you do that. Ah! I'm really surprised I got to sneak in that damage there. Like, I get it, because now I can't play a creature this turn. But, like, it seems like my opponent's life total is precious enough that they probably should have done that in combat. I don't know what the rest of their hand is. So, like, obviously I can't say with certainty, but that is the impression that I have. I'm still not dead. Like, I can draw a land this turn, go like Gale Rider Sliver, Striking Sliver into like Lord, and probably race my opponent. But the pause here is indicative that like my opponent actually does have relevant cards. Yes, that is a great example of a relevant card. Hmm. Hmm. That's actually much more damage than it looks like because the Mishra's Factories can be animated to grow it by 2. This is probably the point where I die, right? Like my opponent taps Ancient Tomb, goes to 5. I don't present lethal next turn. Getting hit for, like, assuming the Karn minuses 4, 5, 6. Yeah. We're close enough to dead here that I'm willing to just call it. Is Harmonic Sliver a good magic card? I don't know. Let's bring it in just in case. We may or may not play Dismember. I'm gonna like have to think about that. I'm not really sure that I need Force of Will here. I think most of the time, assuming that I actually get to cast my spells, I don't care about most of the things that they're playing because I can realistically race them. I think this is going to be my game plan. I'm going to think about it for a minute. Who was that? Otter Lady, thank you very much for your continued support as well. House Slytherin indeed. Like, some of these slivers are not necessarily the best. Like, the Shroud Sliver doesn't necessarily do a ton here. Like, my opponent isn't going to be targeting my creatures with very many things, but it still protects against Walking Ballista. I think I'm okay with trying it without Force of Wills as a starting point. We'll just try not to, like, stumble over our own mana here. Great. I guess we kind of would have liked a 1-drop in this hand, but I think this is okay. Yep, that's the plan. I imagine that Chalice of the Void got boarded out, but it depends on like how many thorn type effects they have because the thorns are going to be worse than the chalices. Chalice is kind of weird in that it's totally fine if I am not on a Cavern of Souls hand. It has like what 12-ish one drops. No, more than that because of the vials. 16-ish, 14-ish one drops that can counter. More than anything else, I just expected to get wastelanded in this turn cycle if my opponent has one. So before I drew that, my plan was to go like Lord into Cloud Thresher Sliver. I think the Shroudy Sliver, so I don't just like randomly lose to a Walking Ballista, is probably the play. It's just a conservative line that I can take. My opponent on multiple Lotus Petals after a mulligan is maybe not where they want to be. That changes if they draw Karn. Hmm. Losing the Cloud Thresher Sliver really sucks here. Because, like, now these are valid blockers, whereas they weren't going to be before. Yup. Trying a one drop would be great. A Gale Rider Sliver in particular would be gas. This is what you do to get good at Magic. Just ask for the cards that you need. Confirm you don't have reach, right? No. Comic flop. That sounds like one of those monkey paw things where like you wish for it and then like gold bars fall out of the sky and they start like crushing people's skulls. I don't think I'm gonna ask for that one. I'm not gonna abuse my power. Yeah, that's another great example of one. All right, so how many Thopters can you make? Two Thopters? Three Thopters, technically, I guess. Or no, Ravager can't sack to itself, put the counter. Yeah, okay. Now we only have to worry about two Thopters this turn. No, man, I'm done with school. Screw school. It's not cool. Yeah, I did the exact same thing that you did. I was like, oh, they can tap it and then sack Ravager. Nope, nope. They gotta sack this to Ravager first. So I do have to worry about 3 chump blockers next turn, but that's not going to be enough to kill Gale Rider Sliver. Now things get a little more interesting. But it sure seems like math is for people who have blockers. We're just going to turn all my creatures sideways and hope my opponent dies. Yeah, no block there. Why not block Thought-Knot Seer? It has 4 power? And I have a 3/3? So they tap Hangerback Walker and then sacrifice. They end up with 4 Thopters, which can block all of my creatures. So I am potentially not doing any combat damage this turn. After blocks, they can sack the 4 Thopters to this creature, meaning that 10, potentially 12 damage is coming in. I just need to put a blocker in front of Arcbound Ravager and I'm fine. Should have played my Ether Vial pre-combat, so I could have F6'd through all of this. I don't need to bluff anything. My opponent is like dead on board, right? They 100% have to like try to attack and kill me next turn. So like holding up a dismember bluff actually doesn't do anything, right? Like the only way they can possibly win is by like attacking in and trying to kill me, and like I don't block or something. Because this is Shroudy, they can't remove it. So like, I should be good to go. I wonder if I killed myself by attacking with too many creatures. I didn't account for walking ballista when I did my math. I was totally safe from the Arcbound Ravager sacrifice play last turn because I always had the option of blocking Thought-Knots here. So now, like, I block Ravager, they move the counters to some other creature, and they kill me. Like, and Ballista just means it can be a direct damage laser to the face anyway. Yeah, I died. I attacked with one too many creatures because I thought I was safe. Yeah, alright. GG. That one's on me. I did not think there were lines that killed me. So when I was doing all of my sort of like calculations, I was expecting all of the Thopters would jump in front of creatures and then get sacrificed, but they saved one and then drew Walking Ballista, and that combination was devastating. Excuse me. This is a hand that's probably going to get silly very quickly, assuming that like our stuff works. All right, we didn't get like Force of Willed. Like Force of Will into Wasteland is the way that we lose that one. Ah, is a race. Um, I'm treating this Force of Will like it does not exist. The plan is just like race my opponent by dumping these creatures into play. Morning. Yeah. Now this Force of Will is a card. But my opponent is pretty far behind in terms of like racing. I'll counter your True Name Nemesis. No ability to fight over it. Rough. Always no. No. We have the gas. Show you another one of those. Yeah, but that's probably my only opportunity all game to counter something that matters. Like that's just a tempo play. This match is probably going to be really boring. Both of us have minimal ways to interact with each other, so like this is just going to come down to a race. Again, minimal sideboarding for fair decks. I expect that the player who is on the play is going to win most of these games. Eh, I want a very aggressive hand. This is not that. Eh. 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 Yeah, like this hand is unquestionably better than our first hand. It's just like still not good enough. I'm really kind of curious about what sort of hands my opponent is keeping over there. If like 2 games in a row they don't have any 2 drops. Do I like begrudgingly need to cast this into a counterspell because otherwise I'm too worried about falling behind on tempo? Probably. I have a daily D&T series where I play D&T every week. What? Are we just dying to a combo here? Sure seems like I'm just dying to a combo here. They just like violin whatever the other piece is. Just like Oracle of what's its face? Sauce's Oracle. Okay, well that answers my question about what sort of hand they kept. So that makes the Force of Wills slightly more valuable than they normally might be in this matchup. And that explains why my opponent's hands were so clunky. Do I board in the Force of Wills? I guess it's just awkward because like if I'm boarding in the Force of Wills, the cards that I'm cutting are probably blue because I want the 1-drop slivers so that I can like be as aggressive as possible to try to close the game out. Since like this is largely just a race, and like hibernation sliver is like probably not where I need to be. I'm gonna do it. It's a little weird. I don't think I get to throw this hand back. Like, the hand definitely has colored mana problems, but I get, like, assuming the Vial resolves, I have Vial into Dismember a threat slash hold up Dismember for the rest of the game. So I don't just randomly brick to the combo. And then I'll get, like, Gale Rider Sliver off of Vial, followed by Sinew Sliver, Sinew Sliver. Not the fastest clock, but it's a very good hand assuming that Vial resolves. It's also a fine hand if I draw another land and Vial doesn't resolve. Alright, we are at a huge advantage this game since I have Vial and they don't. Nice. Now I don't need to hold up Dismember in this turn cycle. I can just jam a Lord. This hand is going to be extremely aggressive. That is probably too slow to matter, as scary as that is to say. The dream is they put it on True Name Nemesis. But, like, this... That's actually interesting. I was planning on just turning Mutavault sideways. And putting Sinew Sliver in. But I could put in Hibernation Sliver and Sinew Sliver here. And, like, cast Sinew Sliver. I can hit for 6 or 8 this turn. Or sorry. I hit for 6 or 10 this turn. I should really just hit for 10 and close out the game, then the Jitte doesn't matter. No, this is just the random 5-0 deck list. I'm not really a big fan of the haircut, but it's like, it's what I could do by myself, right? And I'm not super comfortable leaving the house for non-essential things at this time. Rumix, thank you very much for following. So, like, haircut is, like, not on the list of things that I want to expose myself to, like, coronavirus for. Also, yes, I also did that. Alright, so we are playing against Storm. I have exactly 4 cards that matter in game 1, and they are all named Force of Will. It's possible that I should just keep this hand because it pressures my opponent pretty well, and, like, that's good enough for game 1. This is awkward if I get Duressed or Thought Seized on one. Like, the hand becomes very bad if that's the case. But otherwise, it's like Vile Pass, then it's, if I brick on land, it's put in Gale Rider Sliver, cast Gale Rider Sliver, and then hopefully, like, it's Lord the following turn. I'm hoping to win game 1 via my opponent's fail rate. I have 11 cards to bring in for post-sideboard games. That was a Shuffle off the Ponder. Beautiful. Well, we have 11 cards because, like, the matchup's so bad. It's better to view it that way rather than like, yeah, we're gonna win these post sideboard games because we have 11 cards. No, we have 11 cards because like we are expecting to lose game one a huge percentage of the time. So because we have Waterlogged Grove, we can't just like Cloud Thresher Sliver this turn and get in there, unfortunately. Cloud Thresher Sliver is probably coming in off the Vial next turn. Maybe not. No, I can't cast the Cloud Thresher Sliver. This produces green-blue. Like, we have a lot of lands, like, that are rainbow lands, but not all of our lands are rainbow lands. This is a weird spot where it may be correct to leave my Vial on one so that I can put in the Gale Rider Sliver and cast the Crystalline Sliver, but there's a lot of draws that would make me want to have Vial on too. I want to hold one of my blue slivers, if possible, for a top-decked Force of Will. I should just be dead. Oh, I also like potentially could have just like said I can hold Crystal and Sliver and like played this, but I think it's better to Vial in this and hold this for Force of Will reasons. I didn't do math to see if like top deck Lord leaves me with lethal or not lethal. Um, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See if we can draw a Lord. Did not draw a Lord. I don't believe that we won. It's turn 5. It's turn 5. Yes. 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 Okay, start there. Now, like, what am I boarding out? It's probably a bunch of the one drops, and like we keep most of our blue cards that pitch, and we keep most of our lords. Like, I could even see like cutting Ether Vial, as crazy as that sounds. Like, we're good with tapping out every turn, and like there's a lot of scenarios where we're gonna put Chalice on one. The bounce sliver worth just keeping to pitch to force a will? Yeah, I think so. Like looking at our blue count, we have like 18, 19, 20, 21. Like 21 is a really good number. Um, Chalice on zero is not going to be good on the draw. They'll play out their artifact mana if they play around Chalice. So I think we play assuming that we are going to be playing a slightly longer game, especially one on the draw, and I lose a lot of my early aggression for hate cards instead. I think that's fine. It's definitely weird. And like it's possible that like the Cloud Thresher sliver is worse than a one drop sliver because I'm going to have so many other two drops that I am going to want to cast. Yeah, maybe I've talked myself into just like keeping a couple of random one drop slivers or a couple of vials. The vials are fine, but like I have to make my cut somewhere, and cutting the vials seems correct. Like in game one, where our aggro density was the highest it could be, we didn't kill until either turn 5 or 6. I forget who went first. Yes. Yeah. It's a counter unless you pay one more when targeting my permanents with spells. The bottom with Preordain. The Brainstorm's very good here. It allows them to like maybe sculpt their hand away from something that was graveyard focused and move their hand towards something that is instead ad nauseum focused. Aethersworn Canonist would be a bit of a weird draw because like I'd have to put unclaimed territory on like human, keeping me off of casting Hibernation Sliver or Crystalline Sliver. Like obviously it would be a very good draw, but I just want to like point out that that would be weird. Yep. They get the discard to back this up too. Like I accept that, but I'm not going to force a negation the Dark Ritual that early. Yeah, I beat Merfolk. We just aggroed them out. Infernal Tutor double crack. Just goblins time. You Infernal Tutor for Infernal Tutor, then um, make enough goblins that I can't possibly beat them. Yup. I'll take a draw step, pretending like there's an out. Oh man, we have an out. I get to kill myself with Hibernation Sliver. I've got to do it. You understand. Got him. I don't think we do any changes. It's not like we have a sweeper or anything like that. Going back in time to win a game of Magic. Had the power of time travel, I think I would be doing other things than altering the results of matches of Magic. Like, we can get way more degenerate than that. We're starting to get spoilers for the new set coming out, which is pretty cool. Like, there's a new black card that is essentially an upgraded Smother. It's black and 1 for destroy target creature with CMC 3 or less, or target planeswalker with CMC 3 or less, and that's super cool. Yeah, so you stop Oko from being made, and then what monstrosity gets printed in its place? You have to, like, stop the whole fire philosophy in the first place. I'm a little sorry for players who, like, play standard. They have, like, a miserable Teferi right now, and they're about to get another Teferi that looks like it's also going to be miserable to play against. Yeah, we're good. No, we're up against Ant. Notably, we play Sliver Hive first before Cavern of Souls because we may need to put Cavern of Souls on human if we draw Aethersworn Canonist. Does it not do anything? I don't know. Looks spooky to me. I mean, there's a lot of the slivers that are like randomly really, really good against goblins, right? So like striking sliver is rough, and the flanking sliver is also like a little spooky. Yes, you get to take one of my counter spells. I still have like a force plus a blue card to pitch to it left. Uh, Rifle Pile's top end is like pretty covered already. So I'm dead to discard spell plus opponent going off at any moment. I have an okay power level clock, but just okay. Ooh, so that's pretty good. Do I draw a card here? Because I can draw a card and hit a 1-drop sliver that I can play, and that potentially is impactful. I think I'll do it. There's not that many 1-drops I hit. Yes, that's fine. I don't get the luxury of countering that. Nice. The Grim Tutor art, both for like the standard art and alternative art, are like pretty sick. In this spot, what are you aiming counterspells at? Things that try to kill me. I would also, at this point now, counter an Echoing Truth because I'm going to have two Sinew Slivers in play. Oh, no way in hell do I like counter a Ponder or something at this stage. Like now we're presenting lethal. I would need like double Echoing Truth or something like that. GG's. Super happy that we got to steal game one there. Um, like these post sideboard matches are like definitely stressful. I would not counter a Dark Ritual. I would consider countering a Cabal Ritual where my opponent has tapped all of their black mana. Yeah, there's 11 sideboard cards in the matchup for a reason. We lost game two, so like we only won it because like we managed to steal game one. Um, partially due to an aggressive start on our end, and partially due to our opponent just like stumbling a little bit. It's not like I had a force of will in game one or anything. Yeah. All right, so just like rookie mistake, Ancient Ziggurat only taps per creature spell mana. When you're playing Slivers, don't play that expecting that you could play your Ether Vial out. Don't do it. It doesn't work. I've tried. All right. We have another vial for next turn, so like that's totally fine. We're probably playing against Smoko. We have a crystalline sliver, so our stuff doesn't get messed with, so that's at least nice. This is the second, feel bad ether vial after countering the first. We're going to cast the striking sliver. We don't care if this gets like countered or removed. The Gale Rider sliver is more valuable. That's the one I'll want to vial in. As of right now, I don't have mana to cast either Crystalline Sliver or Hibernation Sliver next turn, and Ancient Ziggurat also does not attack to animate Mutavault. Now things are more interesting. Don't have to worry about Death Touch yet. I don't think I want to expose Crystalline Sliver to a counterspell. I think like that should come in uncounterably. And so it's a question of like, do I swing Mutavault here, or do I cast Hibernation Sliver? I think I'll cast Hibernation Sliver. I should do that post combat. This has first strike. I'm a little unsure about this one. Like, I don't know if opponent last turn was legitimately thinking about countering an Ether Vial, or if they were just, like, tilted that I had the second. If they were just tilted that I have the second, then casting this is pretty darn good. I don't really know where and how to pick my battles in this matchup without having matchup experience. I think I hold this for the first part of the turn. I need a Sliver Hive to activate 5. Okay. Interesting that, like, there are going to be these worlds where I can bounce my Mutavault after animating it to like quote unquote like make a land drop. Like, do I let them know this is coming? I don't think I let them know this is coming. It works towards like actually activating Sliver Hive, but I think I'm good with just like sandbagging a card. I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to play this because like if I end up bouncing a bunch of things with Hibernation Sliver, I want to have more land drops in play. That is unclear to me. Yes, a lord off the top would be pretty spicy. Unclear whether or not I'm actually supposed to tap this Ether Vial here, because it does allow something to like technically get removed in response, but like whatever. Gifty, thank you very much for following. I hope you are enjoying the content. All right, so we are at least theoretically presenting lethal here. We'll see what actually happens. Felchmaster, these are my first matches since the companion nerf. So, no comment. I do not have data. Yeah, sure. That is just a blocker. That's fine. Like it does not get to kill any of my creatures. Two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Correct? Yeah, whatever. I'm vialing it in. Someone else has spotted the good old wild Yorian. That is a lot of subs. Felchmaster, thank you very much for your continued support. It is like very, very much appreciated on this channel. Thank you so much. Let me get this updated here. Whoop. Yeah, I don't know when we'll do the um, elongated stream or whatever you want to call it, but it'll happen sometime this month. Got a handful of things sketched in on the calendar already. So honestly, it feels kind of like we're like good to go in this matchup, right? So like First Strike beats the Death Touchers, flanking beats the Death Touchers, Crystalline Sliver shuts off removal, blah, blah, blah. This guy shuts off removal. So like how am I supposed to board? So like Dead of Winter is a spooky card that I can help to play around more. I can also play around the Death Touchers a little bit more by boarding in Dismember. So like these are the cards that I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm also assuming that our opponent is just like Snowco. Like we saw them pitch an Uro to Force of Will. Yeah, but those are 6 cards, and I'm playing a deck with no manipulation, right? Like, I don't want to trade a Lord or one of their cantripping idiots. I just want to ignore their idiots. I don't even know if I'm supposed to, like, literally sideboard any cards. Like, Cloud Thresher Sliver is kind of eh. Like, it has its utility, but I'm not, like, super in love with it. I think this is one of the weaker portions of the deck. My Force of Negations aren't, like, literally are not hard castable, though. Which makes my Force of Negations worse than a lot of other Force of Negations. Maybe that's okay. I don't know if I'm supposed to drop all 3 of those. That's dropping a lot of bodies. It's probably over sideboarding by like 1 or 2. Yeah, it's either like don't board or board very lightly. When I'm back on the play, I'll probably drop a Force of Negation or 2. But on the draw, having a couple more answers to like Uro, or not Uro, to Oko and their sweeper seems totally fine. I have a medium power level hand that gets to curve out, so I'm keeping it. But like, it's not like Cavern of Souls levels of exciting. We have a little bit of tension here in that like Hibernation Sliver would be very good, but we probably don't get to cast it this game. Maybe we do now. It's kind of interesting if I am supposed to drop like what I am supposed to pitch to a force. Yeah, this does nothing right now as long as I have the Sidewinder Sliver. I am good with that resolving. I think this is Crystalline Sliver time. That card is really obnoxious, and I will force a will to fight over it. I guess I also like force a will or removal spell on Sidewinder Sliver in response. That's a little weird. Yeah, that's awkward, but it is what it is. So now, do I trade Predatory Sliver for Ice Fang Coatl? I'm not going to say that I'm good with that, because I'm not, but I think it's happening. I have 5 draws that allow me to ignore this and no manipulation to get to them. I will accept that trade. Otherwise, it's like play hyper slowly and go like let Ice Fang Coatl block something, then Hibernation Sliver it back to my hand, and like that doesn't answer the real problem. And I don't think I want to like wait long enough to deal with like going through that by like making Sliver Hive tokens that attack instead. Like the game going that long just means like this sucker gets in play and I have all sorts of other problems. I think I am going to lose to a Dead of Winter this game. And I also think that I'm going to lose to an Uro this game. So I'm not going to play around Dead of Winter. I am just going to try to like build up a board that is large enough that allows me to beat an Uro. Plague Engineer is not something that beats Slivers on its own. Like these Sliver creatures, these Sliver Lords give themselves an additional bonus as well, so it's not like they fold to a a single Plague Engineer. Like I'm much more worried about my opponent having a 6/6 that is a repeated source of card draw and life gain. Wow. There's the second green for the big guy. Not super well equipped to beat this right now. And notably, the Dismember that we have in the board doesn't answer it either. We have a couple of Caracas that we can draw, which make things really interesting. Hit for 5 or 7 this turn. Hitting for 5 and trying to play Hibernation Sliver to play around Dead of Winter is probably correct. When you're the aggro deck, bouncing the Uro and allowing your opponent to like recast and draw more cards is like super awkward. But like it is the defense that we currently have against it. I maybe get to kill my opponent in 2 turns, but like we're not beating Dead of Winter. It's like really not beating Dead of Winter. Oko is also a relatively large problem. Like, not end of the world level problems, but like it's bad problems. I don't know that I get to play around Ice Fang Coatl anymore. Like, there's worlds where I don't attack with Crystal and Sliver to play around Ice Fang Coatl trading with it. But, like, the more I sit back and play conservatively, the longer they have Divine Dead of Winter, which is going to be, like, the big card that, like, truly, truly beats me. And I also probably play this out here. Play around some weird Snapcaster Mage just as, like, Ambush Viper scenarios. Yep. So there's the scenario I talked about where, like, we turn on their removal by putting the attack in, but I don't think we get to play around that given our position. The cantrips are terrifying. Yep, Coatl is really annoying. It it's one of those things like it is what it is. I don't think I get to play around it. Like, I know that like the line is available, but I don't think I have a ton of like game-winning scenarios where I do play around that there. Like it sucks that opponent had like multiple cheap removal spells in their hand, but like if they don't have Coatl and I miss out on those points of damage, it's so relevant. Like I have to deal with Uro all game. I'm so afraid of Dead of Winter just ending the game on the spot if I play conservatively. Right, but I don't know what they have, right? And if I play too conservatively, I let the game drag on, and then they have more time to draw towards Dead of Winter, more time to draw towards Oko. Like, it's possible that like playing around it is fine, but I don't know that I have that luxury. Oh, Ancient Ziggurat mana. Whoops. Oh yeah, like in a lot of other scenarios, I absolutely would have played around that, but like I don't like from the position that I was at, I don't think I win the game if I try to play around it. Yeah, that's good enough. I'm thinking a little bit about Dismember to just like help force damage through and close the game quickly. Like, even though I have Hibernation Sliver, I'm really not great against sweepers. Like, getting an Ice Fang out of the way so that we save a Lord or something is pretty good. I don't know about some of, like, protecting myself against some very specific cards from my opponent is good. But unlike against a lot of other control decks where you can just like build up an infinite sized board and kill them, I'm like very much in fear of my opponent's endgame. So like this stops Dead of Winter and Oko, but I can't ever hardcast it. I don't think I want this. I think it's like some combination of these cards. Dismember seems kind of bad against my opponent's deck. And it's like a question of like, do I just accept that Icefang Coatl is going to take one of my creatures out and play more creatures? And like that could be correct. I don't know. Let's go back to game one configuration. Yep. We can't cast Hibernation Sliver currently, but like that's okay. We get to shut off my opponent's counter spells for basically the entire game. We have an answer, like quote unquote answer to Uro. I have uncounterable Crystal and Sliver, so my opponent maybe never gets to use a removal spell this whole game. This hand's great. That is a fantastic draw as well. And now, like, striking Sliver means that we get to play around Icefang Coatl being flashed in, which is, like, super clutch. Best draw would be in just another Cavern of Souls. We're going to lose this game to Dead of Winter, but we'll beat most other things. Would like really, I think, like to draw Hibernation Sliver to play around Dead of Winter better. Never mind, we can Force a Will it now. That's great. The Force of Will is pitching Hibernation Sliver at the moment, which means we can just play an uncounterable Lord. Push the damage. Dead of Winter plus Force of Will would be a kick in the teeth. It is really frustrating. So it's a question of like, do I want to be able to bounce my creatures, or do I want to be able to have like a combination that allows me to not care about Ice Fang Coatl ever again. And that's what I valued. Unfortunately, we're gonna just like lose to this one card now, and our decisions don't matter because Oko invalidates any sort of mid-rangey deck. No, I don't really think the new Masticore is legacy playable. It's a 3-mana card with acceptable stats, but the discard a card downside uh, is very relevant. So my opponent doesn't get to attack right now, but neither do we. And they have a Planeswalker and I don't. They also have better endgame inevitability. Alright, that beats me. There's worlds where I get a Flying Sliver in play and I can steal this game, but as long as my opponent makes food so they don't lose to that, I can't win from here. I also don't have like Harmonic Sliver boarded in to answer that, so that's just there forever. Counter spells are also live. Alright, well there is the Flying Sliver. It gives us the possibility of stealing. But I really need something else before I cast that. Like, I need to be able to kill Oko or kill my opponent in one turn, and that's probably not happening. At least my opponent isn't like playing around this sliver. So like at least I have that going for me. I just concede to getting bored though. Like my opponent is just a turn or two away from being able to just attack through all my stuff anyway. And just like not care that they lose some permanents. Yeah, at this point, I think this one's far enough gone that I'm gonna value my time here. Plus, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of have to pee. All right, I will be right back. At some point, I do probably need to update chat rules. You know, don't let Phil get paired against elves seems a little bit outdated now. Like, we might have to change that like, don't let Phil get paired against Oko. Oko seems to be the problem card now. Elvish Visionary did nothing wrong. That's a lie. Elvish Visionary has done, like, many war crimes, crimes against humanity, and they can't be ignored, but right now, there's a larger threat that we must focus on. I hope you all are having at least an okay day. Um, we're doing okay with slivers. We've had some really bad beat situations. So like in match 4 there, like having the force of will to beat the Dead of Winter, but my opponent having the force back is rough. Similarly, like in game 2, we were in a tough position where I think we needed to go aggro and expose the Crystalline Sliver to Ice Fang Coatl, and it just like didn't pay off. Uh, I mean, I'm keeping this. We get to disguise ourselves like Death and Taxes for a turn, which is cool. So this is essentially a 5-card hand that Force of Wills the first relevant spell from my opponent. And that's probably fine. I mean, that's happening. Not worth a Force of Will, given that my opponent is a combo deck. It just makes a lot of my hand awkward. I guess, like, they're not 100% a combo deck. Like, it could be Pox or something, but, like, this is a start that's indicative of depths. Yeah, that's what I would have taken too. So now my hand doesn't apply very much pressure. I have to, like, force a will of Bob here, I think, even though that doesn't necessarily feel great. I'm going to have as many flying blockers as I need for a Bob, so that's a thing. Not for a Bob, for a Maritage. My Caracas is also a bit of a boon here. Are there weird worlds where I cast Hibernation Sliver here instead of vialing it in? No, I don't think so. Other news, I am hungry. I am very much ready for lunch. I think we're going to put together a meat and cheese board for today. Though I don't know where my girlfriend is. She seems to have disappeared. It probably meant that she like ran to the post office or something. Does clothing reselling on the side, so she's always running out to put out packages. Yeah, it is kind of breakfast time. Um, we're gonna have blockers available for Merit Lodge because I can just like pay 2 life, Hibernation Sliver, then Violet in. That's not something I need to worry about. My opponent's gonna have to wiggle a little bit to beat me. I need Wasteland for Caracas and also like a crop rotation or something. Hold? Feels like hold. Yeah, I sure do need more pressure than 3 damage. Yeah, no. That card is too powerful to let go. Like, that card will just, like, funnel them into, like, the wastelands and crop rotations that they need to beat me. If I was closer to aggro killing them, I might not counter that, but I am, like, real far away from actually beating my opponent right now. Okay, so right now I have cast Predatory Sliver, attack in for 5 damage. My opponent creates Merit Lodge and attacks in with it. I Caracas it, or I go pay 4 life, Hibernation Sliver, return to hand, block, pay 4, pay 2 life, return it. I don't need to pay life to return Gale Rider Sliver. And now that my opponent has this on board, I might want to make my land drop for some weird scenarios where I do need to play multiple creatures in a turn. At this juncture, I feel slightly favored, but I'm still nervous. Abrupt Decay also becomes like hyper relevant. The Abrupt Decay and Gale Rider Sliver turns these things into non-blockers anymore. I can't do anything about stopping that. Yep, they got. It's like presumably a Wastelander Ghost Quarter, yeah. Don't have a basic. I do not have a. So this is just an I attack in with everything. Whatever my opponent blocks, I bounce back to my hand. And then I just need to leave creatures of 2 different colors available, and I'm good to go. Yes. I'm still going to like make them kill the Caracas rather than like try to use this mana here and get a touch greedier. Yes. You forget about Caracas? Need to like now Ghost Quarter in response to that trigger. Yeah, sure. Hibernation Sliver is really weird to play against. Like now I just bounce that. I think I put it back in now. No, Abrupt Decay on Gale Rider Sliver still beats us. Oh, awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying that. I'm really, really enjoying that game. The videos for next week are at a little bit higher Covenant level, and like I'm obviously better at playing than I was, a week ago when I recorded the previous sets of videos. Um, there's there's some good ones in there. All right, Hibernation Sliver, the real MVP here. Now, what am I doing as far as sideboarding goes? So, like, I can force a negation to help with crop rotation type lines, and I can dismember to help with Bob type lines. But, like, how much should I detract from my primary game plan? So, like, just talking aloud here, I don't think I can cut any of these. I don't think I can cut any of these. I don't think I can cut any of these. I don't think I can cut any of these. So, like, these are cards that I could look at cutting. I don't think I get to cut the vials. So, like, this is fine against Abrupt Decay based lines that can take out my slivers that give me flying. So, like, this ability is not super relevant. This ability is not super relevant. This ability is slightly relevant, and it's a blue card to pitch to Force of Will. So I can bring in answers to Bob and Elvish Reclaimer. I can bring in answers to Crop Rotation. Like, eh. Oh yeah, I guess this isn't great against Decay. Yeah, thank you for that. I don't know that I sideboard. Like, a lot of times I'm just trying to, like, goldfish my opponent while leaving myself with opportunities to, like, block. Red Sliver, indeed, Gobler. Um, yeah, This is fine, but situational. And this is okay as well. Possible that a force of negation is better than like one of these bodies. I'm gonna try 2 dismembers and see how I feel about that. Like my opponent can create a 3/4 blocker relatively easily, and so for the times where I don't have flying, that matters. Yep, we're keeping this hand. Like we have a natural Caracas again, which is somewhat unlikely given that I believe it is a 2 of. Duress, you say? Nice, dragon serpent, whatever it is. Thanks for showing me that art. I appreciate it. Lol, 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 lol. I think Duress was supposed to be boarded out against us. Yeah, Pithing Needle is fine. That gets to name Caracas. You know about that. However, you don't know about Hibernation Sliver, which is admittedly pretty sick. We're going aggro very quickly here. Like, we're going to have, like, aggro plus safety. Like, next turn I get Hibernation Sliver plus Sidewinder Sliver. I can't... No, I can. I don't get attacks this turn. But I'm very safe. Like, crop rotation isn't going to beat me sort of safe. And this standoff probably favors me. Opponent can attack to make me lose 2 life, and then they lose a bajillion D on the backswing. And starting next turn, I can attack with everything except Gale Rider Sliver. And then bounce whichever one they block. I also like that they don't have Abrupt Decay mana. That's what makes this house of cards fall apart. We'd love to get another Gale Rider Sliver or the Red-White Sliver that gives flying and haste. Yeah, so now I can attack in with all of these. If they block Hibernation Sliver, I just like bounce it, replay it, and then like get another Sliver into play as well. Roxas is needled. Actually, I can attack with Gale Rider Sliver, right? So like I attack in, they block with it, and then I just redeploy, and I'll sell things of 2 different colors. Yeah, I can attack in with this as well. I don't know what I was thinking. I go Hibernation Sliver plus Sidewinder Sliver, so that I end up with slivers of different colors. That's why I can't play Hibernation Sliver plus Unsettled Mariner. And I don't need to bounce another one for blockers because my opponent can't. Well, I guess I could play around like a. No, a dismember, like a single removal spell already beats me because it answers the Gale Rider Sliver. Now, I'm really happy that like people are enjoying the Monster Train content. Um, just like ballpark numbers, I have about 100 people who have been like watching the videos. It's not quite 100, but like that's like the general ballpark that I'm in, which is really good because like I tried to do some Slay the Spire videos before, and those were like sub 30 in number of watchers, and like that wasn't quite worth it. Like a lot of the Slay the Spire videos I did were like single digit watchers, and that's not really where I want to be. Like more so than anything, I'm just like glad that I've convinced some people to try out that game because like that game is legit fire. It is so fun. Nice. Like that game has such great replayability. Like there's so many different combinations with all of the clans. Aha, get flankinged. All right. So now I just need to make sure not to lose to crop rotation. For Sajiri Step by playing creatures of different colors out. Oh yeah, I've been on the wrong side of Hibernation Sliver before. It's pretty dumb. Like all we need to do is dodge Abrupt Decay on Gale Rider Sliver. If that's or Dismember. Like a removal spell here beats us, and like that's been the case all game. Yeah, we got some stuff. Why is this so large? All right, that's a little bit better. Okay, thoughts on the deck? Deck seem fine. In many senses, you're pre-boarded for matchups because like you're pretty good against the fair stuff, and like it's the unfair stuff that you have trouble with, and that's why 11 of your 15 sideboard cards are for unfair fights. And like that makes your sideboarding kind of awkward in that like most of the time you're just like, this is good enough, and you whack submit, or like you change 2 or 3 cards. You don't get significant improvements for a lot of matchups. Uh, and that's okay. That's one of those things where like it is what it is. I don't know how I feel about the deck when like so much Snoko is running around. Like I just lived in fear of Dead of Winter that entire matchup, and like Oko is like similarly a problem if you're not off to a hyper aggressive start. Like not so much in that it like elks your creatures and then you're in trouble, but like your opponent getting a bunch of elks of their own to pressure you back while also causing a distraction that like maybe forces you to go away from their life total. Um, I view that as problematic. I don't know that I'll like pick up and play this deck again for a while, but it was like definitely a fun morning and a good way to like spend my dealer's choice stream. Yeah, I think the blue count is reasonable. Um, it felt like most of the time that we had a Force of Will, we had something to pitch to it. And it's actually, well, yeah, I guess like 17 cards outside of the Force of Will that you drew itself. Yeah. And then for the post sideboard games where you're bringing in Force of Negation, that count is a little higher because against like the combo decks, you'll often be trimming like stuff like this or this instead. So your relative blue count will go up as well. Um, I don't know that it really make any changes to the sideboard. Like Slivers has always kind of been like this, where like your game one hedges so heavily against fair decks that like your sideboard is just full of unfair stuff. Like seems good to me. We played a lot of weird matchups today, like Merfolk with what was it? Paradigm Shift that removes your library from the game. Don't really think that's better than regular Merfolk. I was impressed by the green blue Merfolk list that we played against on stream a week or two ago. But yeah, I don't know that the like, oops, I win because you didn't play around this weird thing is worth just like clunking up your deck and losing the games that you just like steal to aggro wins. Which is a huge percentage of like the Merfolk wins, where you just go like 1 drop, 2 drop Lord, 2 drop Lord, and it's just like too much pressure when backed up by like a Mutavault or a single counter spell or something like that. We ended up with the 3/2 Archon, which is fine. You know, we went positive. Decklist feels okay. Wouldn't be super comfortable playing this in a premiere event or anything like that. Should rename my channel University of Spice. Sure does seem like that sometimes. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. Um, since some people were talking about Monster Train, I'm just gonna host someone random in my recommended channels who plays Monster Train. I know nothing about them. Have a great rest of the day, folks. I pushed out an Eternal Glory podcast episode yesterday, so if you're interested in that, feel free to give that a listen. Fair warning, the last half an hour or so of the podcast does talk like modern American politics and social issues and stuff. So like if you don't have the emotional capacity to deal with that right now, or like if you just don't want to hear about that, there's a clear warning where you can stop. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. I hope you enjoyed. And if you do enjoy and you're not already following, please consider following. And if you really love the content, consider doing a donation deck list to support my channel. Have a great rest of the day.